Hello everyone, it's Sophia here, and I have a little story to share with you today. Something that happened just the other day that I still can't quite shake off. It's a simple story, really, but sometimes the simplest things are the most soothing. It all started with a walk. I was strolling down the street, lost in thought, just enjoying the crisp air and the gentle afternoon sunlight. Everything felt so peaceful, so calm. And then, you will not believe what happened next. It started raining. And of course, as luck would have it, I was without an umbrella. Honestly, for a second, I felt that familiar pang of annoyance, you know, the one you get when the universe seems to be playing a tiny, little prank on you. But then something shifted. The rain was so gentle, so soft, and the way it kissed my skin felt surprisingly calming. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath of the fresh, rain-washed air, and just let myself be present in that moment. It felt like magic. It was a simple moment, but it reminded me of the beauty in unexpected things. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And remember, new videos are released daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, you are never going to believe what happened to me the other day. I decided, you know, on a whim, to make lemon rice. Lemon rice. Sounds simple, right? Something light, refreshing, a little zingy. Famous last words. This whole lemon rice saga turned into an epic adventure, I swear. It all started with a craving. It was a Sunday afternoon, sunny and warm, and I had this sudden, intense yearning for lemon rice. Not just any lemon rice, mind you. The kind my grandmother used to make. You know, the kind that's both tangy and comforting, with that perfect balance of flavors that just sings in your mouth. Now, my grandmother, she was a magician in the kitchen. Everything she touched turned into gold, culinary gold, that is. Her lemon rice was legendary. Light and fluffy, each grain separate and distinct, coated in this vibrant yellow sauce that practically glowed. And the aroma? Oh, the aroma. It could lure you in from a mile away. A symphony of roasted peanuts, curry leaves sputtering in hot oil, and that unmistakable citrusy burst of fresh lemon. I hadn't attempted her recipe in years. Partly because, well, let's be honest, I was a little intimidated. Grandmother's cooking? Sacred ground. But mostly because I was always so busy, caught up in the whirlwind of life, you know? Work, errands, social engagements. I'll make it next weekend, I tell myself, weekend after weekend. But that Sunday, something was different. The craving was too strong to ignore. It was like a culinary siren song, pulling me towards the kitchen. So, I took a deep breath, pulled out my grandmother's well-worn recipe book, stained with turmeric and thyme, a testament to countless delicious meals, and decided to dive in. First step. Soaking the rice. Easy peasy, right? Wrong. I couldn't find the usual basmati I used. All I had was this stubborn, short-grain rice that refused to cooperate. It soaked up the water like a sponge, becoming this sticky, clumpy mess. I mean, it looked less like rice and more like rice pudding gone wrong. Panic started to set in. Was I destined to fail before I even began? I decided to persevere. Next up, the tempering. Now, this is where the magic happens, right? The sizzling of the oil, the popping of the mustard seeds, the fragrant dance of the curry leaves. It's a sensory overload in the best possible way. I carefully measured out the oil, or at least, I thought I did. Turns out, in my slightly frazzled state, I'd poured in way too much. So, when I added the mustard seeds, they didn't just pop, they exploded. Like tiny, fiery projectiles, bouncing off the pan and pinging against the kitchen walls. I swear, I found a mustard seed stuck to the ceiling fan later that week. Okay, I muttered to myself, wiping oil splatters off my face, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But then, I caught a whiff of the curry leaves, crisp and fragrant in the hot oil, and a wave of determination washed over me. I wasn't giving up, not now, not when I was so close to capturing a little piece of my grandmother's magic. The next hurdle? The rice. Remember that sticky, clumpy mess I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it wasn't any better after being cooked. It was more gluey. Like edible wallpaper paste. I stared at it in despair. This was not how it was supposed to look. Grandmother's rice was always light, fluffy, each grain separate and distinct. Mine? A solid, glutinous mass. Then, inspiration struck. Fluff it with a fork. I remembered my grandmother saying this, her voice gentle and reassuring. So, I grabbed a fork and started gently fluffing the rice, separating the clumps, trying to coax it into submission. Slowly, miraculously, it started to work. The rice started to loosen up, becoming lighter, airier. It wasn't quite as perfect as my grandmother's, but it was getting there. The final touch, the lemon juice. This, I thought, is where I can salvage this whole operation. I squeezed in the juice of 2 plump, juicy lemons, the bright, citrusy scent filling the kitchen. I stirred it all together, added a pinch of salt, a sprinkle of chopped cilantro, and tasted it. Silence. You know that moment when you realize you've made a colossal mistake? That was me, right there, standing in my kitchen, a forkful of something hanging limply from my hand. It wasn't lemon rice. It was lemon-flavored glue. Too sour, too sticky, too everything. I slumped against the counter, defeated. All that effort, all that hope, and I'd ended up with a culinary disaster. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw the whole pot in the trash. I wanted to order takeout and forget this whole lemon rice fiasco ever happened. But then, I remembered something else my grandmother used to say. Cooking is like life. Sometimes, things don't go as planned. But you learn from your mistakes, and you try again. So, I took a deep breath, grabbed another lemon, and started experimenting. A little more salt, a touch of sugar, a generous handful of roasted peanuts. I kept tweaking, adjusting, tasting, until, finally, it happened. The flavors clicked into place. The sourness of the lemon mellowed, the sweetness of the sugar balanced the tang. The peanuts added a delightful crunch. It wasn't exactly like my grandmother's lemon rice, but it was good. Really good. Maybe even great. And you know what? That's when I realized the whole point wasn't about perfectly replicating my grandmother's recipe. It was about the journey, the process, the memories. It was about connecting with her, even though she wasn't physically there. It was about learning from my mistakes, embracing the imperfections, and creating something delicious in the end. So, yeah, my lemon rice adventure didn't exactly go as planned. There were explosions, sticky situations, and moments of sheer culinary despair. But it also brought me closer to my grandmother, taught me a few valuable lessons, and ultimately, resulted in a pretty darn tasty meal. And that, my friend, is what cooking, and life, is all about, isn't it? Now, tell me, what culinary adventures have you been up to lately? Okay. So, you know how sometimes you just need to get away? Not like a big, planned vacation, but just out? Well, that's exactly how I felt a few weeks ago. Work was crazy, the city felt like a pressure cooker, and I was craving, I don't know, something real. So, on a whim, I decided to visit Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall, right? It's that Roman thing in the north of England. I'd always meant to go, seen pictures and all that, but never actually made it. So, there I was, Googling train tickets at midnight. Spontaneous, I know, but sometimes that's just how it goes, right? The next morning, I packed a ridiculously oversized bag, you know, the kind where you throw in everything you might need, including 3 different types of scarves, just in case. Anyway, off I went. The train journey itself was an experience. Fields of green blurring past, little villages tucked into the hills, sheep dotting the landscape like fluffy white clouds. It was so peaceful, so different from the city's constant hum. I felt myself already starting to unwind, you know? Like finally exhaling after holding my breath for way too long. Now, I'd imagined Hadrian's Wall to be, well, I don't know, more wall-like. Like a continuous, towering structure. And parts of it are like that, of course. But it's not just a wall. It's this whole landscape. Forts, mile castles, museums, rolling hills, the whole shebang. It's immense. Absolutely immense. I started at Housestead's Roman fort. Can I just tell you, the wind? Oh my goodness, the wind. It was whipping across those hills, practically trying to steal my scarf. Good thing I packed 3. But honestly, it was exhilarating. I stood there, on the edge of this ancient fort, looking out over miles of open countryside, and I felt so small, in the best way possible. Like my worries, my to-do list, all that city noise, just shrunk. It was a powerful feeling. The fort itself was incredible. You could see the outlines of the buildings, the barracks, the commandant's house. You could almost imagine the Roman soldiers marching, training, living their lives right there. It's funny, isn't it? How these stones, these ruins, can hold so much history, so many stories. I wandered around, touching the rough stones, trying to decipher the information plaques, which, by the way, were fascinating. Did you know that they even had a hospital at Housesteads? And a granary, and well, you get the picture. It was a proper little town, out there in the wilds of Roman Britain. Later, I walked along a section of the actual wall. And, okay, confession time. I may have tripped. Yup, full on stumbled over a loose stone and landed, rather ungracefully, in the mud. Luckily, no one saw, except maybe a few sheep, who probably had a good chuckle. But it was a humbling experience. Literally. And it kind of brought me back down to earth after all that majestic windswept contemplation. The next stop was Vindolanda. Now, this place blew my mind. They've excavated so much, houses, shops, even a bathhouse. And the best part? The Vindolanda tablets. These are thin wooden writing tablets, basically Roman postcards, that were preserved in the damp ground. They talk about everyday life. Requests for more beer, relatable, birthday greetings. It's like a window into their world. It's crazy to think about people writing those messages almost 2,000 years ago. It makes history feel so real, so human. I spent hours in the museum, poring over the artifacts, imagining the people who used them. A child's toy, a leather sandal, a cooking pot, each object told a story, and I felt this weird connection, this sense of shared humanity, across the centuries. Does that sound weird? Maybe, but it's true. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the hills, I found myself sitting on a grassy bank, just taking it all in. The silence, broken only by the wind and the occasional bleating sheep, was almost deafening after the city's constant roar. I felt calm, centered, like I'd finally reconnected with something I hadn't even realized I was missing. The train journey back was quiet. I didn't even bother with my book or my phone. I just looked out the window, watching the landscape change, replaying the day in my mind. The wind, the stones, the stories, it was all still so vivid. So present. So, what's the moral of the story? I don't know, really. Maybe it's that sometimes, the best adventures are the unplanned ones. Maybe it's that history isn't just about dates and battles, it's about people. Or maybe it's just that sometimes, you need to trip over a Roman stone in the middle of nowhere to remember what really matters. You know what I mean? It's funny, isn't it, how a simple day trip can change your perspective. I went looking for a break, for some fresh air, and I found so much more. I found a connection to the past, a sense of wonder, and a renewed appreciation for the simple things. And a muddy pair of trousers. But hey, that's part of the adventure, right? Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But think about this. Every new word you learn is a step closer to fluency. It's like collecting little pieces of a puzzle, and with each word, the picture of fluent English becomes clearer. It truly is amazing how these small victories build up, and before you know it, you're holding a full, beautiful picture of fluent conversation. You've got this, and you know what? There's a fun little trick you can try to boost your speaking skills. It's simply answering random questions aloud. Imagine you're cooking dinner, and you ask yourself, what am I making tonight? Then, answer it aloud in English. Or, if you're on a walk, ask yourself, what do I see around me? And describe it out loud. It's a super easy way to practice speaking without even realizing you're studying. Talking about your hobbies is another fantastic way to practice. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? Well, think about how easily you talk about your passions in your native language. Now, try doing the same in English. You'll find that the words flow much more naturally when you're talking about something you love. It's like unlocking a hidden fluency superpower. Honestly, it feels like magic. You will not believe what happened next. I was talking to a friend the other day who was telling me about a hilarious language mishap. It reminded me of all the funny little stumbles we all have along the way. It's all part of the journey, right? So, tell me, what's the funniest mistake you've made in English? I can't wait to hear your stories. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you just need a change? Like, a deep, soul-stirring, reinvent yourself kind of change? Well, for me, a few months ago, that manifested as a desperate need for a new hairstyle. I'd been rocking the same long, layered look for, well, let's just say longer than I care to admit. It had become, blah. You know, like a comfortable old sweater you love but secretly know you should probably donate. And the thing is, my hair had become a part of my identity. It was my security blanket. People knew me for my long, swishy, chestnut brown waves. Oh, that's Sarah with the gorgeous hair. I'd even overheard that once at a coffee shop, which, let's be honest, totally boosted my ego. But even ego-boosting hair gets boring eventually, right? So, there I was, scrolling through Pinterest late one night, hypnotized by the endless parade of perfectly coiffed strangers. Suddenly, bam, this picture stopped me dead in my tracks. It was this vision of a woman with a chic, asymmetrical bob, short on one side, long on the other, with these textured, piece-y layers. It was edgy, sophisticated, and totally unlike anything I'd ever tried. I mean, totally unlike. I practically inhaled sharply. This was it. This was the change I needed. But then, the self-doubt crept in. My inner critic, bless her heart, started whispering. Are you crazy? You have a round face. That style will make you look like a mushroom. What if you hate it? You'll be stuck with it for months. Remember that disastrous perm in 8th grade? Yeah, this could be worse. She's so helpful, isn't she? But the image of that bob, it wouldn't leave my mind. It was like a siren song, luring me towards the rocky shores of hair transformation. So, after a week of agonizing back and forth, seriously, I made a pros and cons list, talked to my cat about it, the whole 9 yards. I finally booked an appointment with this fancy new salon downtown. I figured, if I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. The day of the appointment arrived, and I swear, I felt like I was walking to my execution. Butterflies flitted around my stomach, my palms were sweaty, and I kept running my fingers through my soon-to-be-gone long hair. The salon was all sleek and minimalist, with this calming, spa-like music playing softly in the background. It smelled of expensive hair products and something faintly floral, like a fancy hotel lobby. My stylist, Marco, was this incredibly stylish man with a silver fox vibe and impeccable cheekbones. He looked like he just stepped out of a magazine. He listened intently as I, a babbling mess of nerves, described the look I wanted, showing him the Pinterest picture about 1,000,000 times. He nodded thoughtfully, running his fingers through my hair, assessing its texture and thickness. I see, he said with a knowing smile. We can definitely work with this. It'll be a transformation, but a good one. And then, it began. The snip of the scissors. The whir of the clippers. Lock after lock of my beloved long hair fell to the floor, forming a chestnut brown halo around my feet. It was strangely liberating. With each snip, I felt a little bit lighter, a little bit freer. You know what I mean? Like I was shedding more than just hair. I was shedding anxieties, insecurities, old versions of myself. Marco worked with such precision and artistry. It was mesmerizing to watch him in action, his hands moving deftly, shaping and molding my hair into something new. He kept checking in with me, making sure I was comfortable, asking if I wanted to go shorter, longer, more angled. It was clear he was passionate about his craft, and that made me feel all the more confident in his hands. After what felt like both an eternity and a blink of an eye, he finally spun my chair around to face the mirror. And there I was, a different person. Okay, maybe not a different person, but definitely a different version of myself. The asymmetrical bob framed my face perfectly, the shorter side highlighting my cheekbones. Yes, they exist, the longer side adding a touch of softness and movement. The textured layers gave it a cool, effortless vibe. It was perfect. Absolutely, positively perfect. I couldn't stop touching it. It felt so different, so light, so me, but newer, bolder, more confident me. I grinned at my reflection, a genuine, ear-to-ear grin that I hadn't felt in ages. Walking out of the salon, I felt like I was floating. The city lights seemed brighter, the air crisper, the sounds of the city a little more vibrant. It was like the world had been turned up a notch. I kept catching glimpses of myself in shop windows, doing double takes. Was that really me? The woman with the chic, edgy bob? The reaction from others was interesting. My friends were divided. Some loved it, showering me with compliments. Oh my god, it looks amazing. So chic, you look 10 years younger. Always a good one to hear, right? Others were less enthusiastic. It's different. Are you sure you like it? It'll grow back, right? One friend even asked if I was going through a midlife crisis. Can you believe it? But you know what? Their opinions didn't matter. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt truly good about myself. I felt like I had taken a risk, stepped outside my comfort zone, and come out on the other side feeling stronger and more authentic. Of course, the new hairstyle came with its own set of challenges. Styling it took some getting used to. I had to invest in new products, learn new techniques, and accept the fact that some days it would look amazing, and some days it would look like a bird's nest, no matter how hard I tried. There were mornings I stood in front of the mirror, battling with my hair, cursing Marco's name under my breath. But even on those bad hair days, there was this underlying sense of satisfaction. I had made a change, and I wasn't going back. The experience taught me more than just how to rock a new hairstyle. It taught me the importance of embracing change, of taking risks, of listening to that inner voice that yearns for something more. It taught me that our identities aren't tied to our hair, or our clothes, or any external factor. It's about how we feel inside. And that day, walking out of that salon, I felt like $1,000,000. Maybe even 2 million. So, yeah, that's the story of my hair transformation. It might seem like a small thing, a superficial change. But for me, it was so much more than that. It was a reminder that sometimes, the smallest changes can make the biggest difference. And honestly, I think everyone should try something drastically different with their hair at least once in their life. You never know, you might just surprise yourself. You might just discover a whole new side of yourself you never knew existed. And who knows, maybe you'll even overhear someone in a coffee shop saying, "Wow, look at her hair." And that, my friend, is a feeling worth all the awkward growing out phases and bad hair days in the world. Wouldn't you agree? Okay, so, you will not believe what happened to me the other day. I finally took a pottery class. I've been wanting to do this for, like, forever. Ever since I saw that scene in Ghost, you know? Okay, maybe not that intensely, but still. The idea of creating something beautiful and tangible with my own two hands has always been incredibly appealing. So, there I was, bright and early Saturday morning, standing outside this cute little studio tucked away on a side street. It had this big, inviting window displaying all these gorgeous ceramic pieces, mugs, bowls, vases, even these quirky little animal sculptures. And the smell? Oh my goodness, the smell. This earthy, clay-like scent wafted out, instantly calming me. It was like aromatherapy but better. I was a nervous wreck, honestly. Like, what if I'm terrible at it? What if I end up with a lopsided, mangled mess instead of a graceful bowl? But then I saw this woman inside, her hands covered in clay, shaping this huge vase with such focus and ease. She looked so peaceful. And I thought, okay, I can do this. It's just clay. How hard can it be? Famous last words, right? I stepped inside, and the studio was even more charming than it looked from the outside. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The walls were lined with shelves overflowing with finished pieces in various stages of drying and glazing. There was this low hum of conversation, the rhythmic whir of the pottery wheels, and this gentle, comforting clinking of tools. It was like stepping into another world. The class was small, which I loved. Just 6 of us, all complete beginners, fumbling around with our aprons. Our instructor, Sarah, was this amazing woman. She had this warm, infectious energy and these incredibly skilled, clay-covered hands that seemed to magically transform lumps of clay into works of art. We started with the basics, of course. Wedging the clay. Have you ever wedged clay? It's not as easy as it looks. It's like wrestling a particularly stubborn, earthy octopus. The goal is to get all the air bubbles out, otherwise, your piece can explode in the kiln. Explode? Can you imagine? All that work, gone in a fiery poof. So, there I was, grunting and groaning, slamming this lump of clay onto the table, trying to force it into submission. My arms started to ache, my back started to creak, and I'm pretty sure I was sweating. Sarah came over, chuckled, and gently showed me the proper technique. Turns out, it's less about brute force and more about finesse. Who knew? Once the wedging was done, finally, it was time to get on the wheel. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I carefully centered my clay on the wheel head, took a deep breath, and pressed the pedal. The wheel started to spin, slowly at first, then faster and faster. My lump of clay wobbled precariously, threatening to fly off into oblivion. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and I was convinced I was about to make a complete fool of myself. Relax, Sarah said, her voice calm and reassuring. Feel the clay. Let it guide you. Easier said than done, right? I tried to center the clay again, pressing my thumbs into the middle, trying to create a well. But the clay had other ideas. It wobbled, it jiggled, it resisted my every attempt to control it. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle against a slippery, spinning monster. Then, disaster struck. The clay, as if sensing my frustration, decided to stage a dramatic escape. It flew off the wheel, splattering clay all over my apron, my face, and the woman sitting next to me. I was mortified, absolutely mortified. The woman, bless her heart, just burst out laughing. Don't worry, she said, wiping clay off her cheek. It happens to everyone. Sarah came over, surveyed the damage, and smiled. Well, she said, that's one way to get acquainted with the clay. She helped me clean up the mess, gave me a fresh lump of clay, and patiently guided me through the centering process again. This time, with her help, I actually managed to center the clay. It was a small victory, but I felt like I'd conquered Mount Everest. Slowly, painstakingly, I started to pull the walls of my bowl up. It wasn't pretty, mind you. It was lopsided, wobbly, and had this weird, unintentional dent on one side. But it was mine. I had created it, and in that moment, I understood the magic of pottery. It wasn't about perfection. It was about the process, the connection with the earth, the feeling of creating something with your own hands. The next 2 hours flew by in a blur of spinning clay, wet hands, and quiet concentration. We all made our own little wonky bowls, each one unique and imperfect. My final product wasn't exactly Instagram-worthy. It looked more like a shallow, dented dish than a bowl, but one loved it. It was a tangible representation of my first foray into the world of pottery. As I left the studio, my hands covered in clay dust, my apron splattered with remnants of my epic clay flinging incident, I felt this incredible sense of peace and accomplishment. It wasn't just about the bowl. It was about the experience. The quiet focus, the rhythmic whir of the wheel, the feel of the cool, wet clay between my fingers. It was about connecting with something ancient and primal, something that resonated deep within my soul. You know what I mean? It's like you're taking this raw, formless material and transforming it into something beautiful and functional. It's almost meditative, and it's messy. I mean, I was covered head to toe in clay. But it was a good kind of messy. A creative, therapeutic kind of messy. And the people, everyone in the class was so friendly and supportive. We were all in the same boat, you know? All fumbling around, making mistakes, learning together. It was such a positive, encouraging environment. I'm already planning my next class. I'm thinking maybe a mug this time? Or maybe one of those cute little animal sculptures I saw in the window. Who knows? Maybe I'll even try making that vase like the woman I saw when I first walked in. Okay, maybe not. Baby steps, right? Anyway, I just had to tell you about it. It was such a wonderful experience. I highly recommend it. You should try it sometime. Seriously, You won't regret it. It's like therapy, but with clay. And who knows, maybe you'll discover a hidden talent, or, at the very least, you'll have a good laugh and a fun, messy story to tell. Just, maybe wear clothes you don't mind getting dirty. Trust me on this one. Learning a new language, especially speaking it, can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But you know what? Your confidence will grow with every sentence you speak. It's true. Think about it. Each time you voice a thought, no matter how small, you're conquering a little piece of that mountain. It's like unlocking a new level in a game, and with each level, you feel more powerful and capable. Honestly, it's such a rewarding feeling to express yourself and be understood. And guess what? There's a fun and easy way to practice every single day. Speaking about your day before sleeping. Just imagine, you're tucked in, cozy and relaxed, and you simply recap your day aloud. What you did, who you talked to, even what you ate. It's like narrating your own personal documentary. It might feel a bit silly at first, but trust me, it gets easier and more natural with time, and it really helps build fluency. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak, especially when it comes to expressing your opinions in a discussion? It's so common. You're following along perfectly, nodding your head, and then, blank. It's like your thoughts are all dressed up with nowhere to go. But remember, your perspective is valuable, and sharing it can lead to some amazing conversations. You will not believe what happened next. Just the other day I was chatting with a friend who's also learning a language, and we were talking about the very same thing, staying motivated. And you know what? It got me thinking, how do you stay consistent in practice? Sharing tips and tricks can be so helpful, so let's chat in the comments. I'd love to hear your strategies. Okay, so, you have to hear this story about the time I attempted to make lauki kofta. It was an experience, let's just say. Now, I consider myself a pretty decent cook. I can whip up a mean pasta, bake a cake that'll make you weep with joy, you know, the usual. But lauki kofta? That was uncharted territory. My grandma, bless her soul, she made the best lauki kofta. Light, fluffy, swimming in this creamy, rich gravy, just heavenly. So, naturally, I wanted to recreate that magic. It started, as all good and disastrous cooking stories do, with a trip to the market. Picture this. A bustling Saturday morning, the air thick with the aroma of fresh coriander and the shouts of vendors. I'm there, elbowing my way through the crowd, determined to find the perfect lauki. Not too big, not too small, just right, you know? After a good 15 minutes of intense lauki scrutiny, I found it. This beautiful, pale green specimen. It felt firm, promising. I triumphantly carried it home, feeling like I'd already conquered half the battle. Back in my kitchen, the real adventure began. First, the grating. Now, my grandma used to grate the lauki with this ancient, almost mystical-looking grater. I, on the other hand, had my trusty food processor. How hard can it be? I thought, blithely tossing chunks of lauki into the whirring blades. Well, let me tell you, it turned out to be much harder than I anticipated. The lauki, instead of grating neatly, turned into this mush. This watery, pulpy mush. It looked less like kofta ingredients and more like something you'd feed a baby. Panic started to set in. My grandma's voice echoed in my head, squeeze out all the water, beta. Right, the water. So, I grabbed a clean kitchen towel and started squeezing. And squeezing. And squeezing. It felt like I was wrestling a particularly stubborn water balloon. My arms were aching, lauki juice was dripping everywhere, and the kitchen looked like a swamp monster had thrown a party. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, I had a relatively dry mound of grated lauki. Victory. Or so I thought. The next step was adding the binding agents. Besan, breadcrumbs, spices. Now, this is where I might have gone a little rogue. See, my grandma's recipe was a closely guarded secret. She'd never written it down, just sort of eyeballed everything. So, I was going mostly on memory and a vague sense of culinary intuition. A pinch of this, a dash of that. It smelled good, I'll give it that. But the mixture still felt a little wet. More besan. My inner voice shrieked. So, I added more besan. And then a little more, just to be safe. You know what I mean? Better safe than sorry, right? Wrong. So wrong. The mixture, which was supposed to be pliable and easy to shape, turned into this dense, sticky, almost cement-like mass. It clung to my hands like glue, refusing to be molded into anything resembling a kofta. I tried everything, oiling my hands, using a spoon, even resorting to a cookie cutter at one point. Don't judge. Nothing worked. This stubborn Lauki mixture was having absolutely none of it. I slumped onto a kitchen chair, defeated. The kitchen was a disaster. My hands were sticky, and the beautiful dream of fluffy, delicious Lauki kofta was rapidly fading away. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mom. "How's the kofta coming along, dear?" she chirped. I almost burst into tears. I explained the whole soggy, sticky saga, my voice laced with despair. She listened patiently, then started chuckling. "Oh, honey," she said, "you added too much besan. That's why it's so sticky. You have to be gentle with the Lauki, like you're handling a newborn baby." A newborn baby. I had been wrestling with it like a stubborn water balloon. My mom, bless her heart, then proceeded to give me a detailed, step-by-step guide over the phone. She explained the importance of squeezing all the water out. Apparently, I hadn't squeezed enough. The right proportion of besan, much less than I had used, and the gentle art of shaping the koftas, no cookie cutters required. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I decided to give it another go. I salvaged what I could of the Lauki mixture, added a bit more grated Lauki. Thankfully, I had bought extra, and, with my mom's voice guiding me, carefully shaped the koftas. They weren't perfectly round, some were a bit wonky, but they held their shape. Progress. Frying the koftas was another adventure. The first few, predictably, broke apart in the hot oil. I fished them out, slightly dejected, but undeterred. I adjusted the heat, prayed to the kitchen gods, and tried again. Success. Golden brown, crispy on the outside, soft on the inside. They looked almost like my grandma's. Finally, the gravy. This, thankfully, went relatively smoothly. The aroma of simmering tomatoes, onions, and spices filled the kitchen, erasing the earlier scent of Lauki-induced despair. I gently added the fried koftas to the gravy, letting them soak in all the flavorful goodness. And then, the moment of truth. I scooped a kofta onto my plate, drizzled some gravy over it, and took a bite. It wasn't exactly like my grandma's. It was different, a little denser, maybe a little less fluffy. But it was good, really good. It was my Lauki kofta, a testament to my perseverance, my mom's patience, and the enduring legacy of my grandma's cooking. So, yeah, the whole Lauki kofta experience was a roller coaster. It was messy, it was frustrating, it was educational. It taught me the importance of patience, the value of a good recipe, written down, preferably, and the magic that can happen when you don't give up, even when your kitchen looks like a swamp monster. Had a Lauki-themed party. And, you know what? I'd do it all again. Because, let's be honest, the taste of victory, even a slightly wonky, slightly dense victory, is always sweet. Especially when it involves Lauki kofta. Leaning in, a warm smile playing on my lips. So, you know how sometimes the smallest things can turn into an adventure? I swear, something as mundane as buying toothpaste turned into a whole saga for me the other day. And I just have to tell you about it. It all started, innocently enough, with that familiar pang of dread when I realized my toothpaste tube was flatter than a pancake. I mean, really flat. The kind of flat where you have to roll it up like a tiny, minty sleeping bag, just to squeeze out a pea-sized blob. You know what I mean? Anyway, I figured, trip to the drugstore, in and out, 5 minutes tops. Easy peasy. But oh, honey, I was so wrong. So wrong. I strolled into the brightly lit aisle, the fluorescent hum kind of buzzing in the background, and headed straight for my usual mint. It's reliable, you know? Like an old friend. But then I saw it. Tucked away on a lower shelf, almost hiding amongst the whitening strips and mouthwash, was a color I'd never seen before in a toothpaste tube. It was, well, imagine a sunrise. That soft, peachy pink blending into a warm, vibrant orange. And the name? Sunrise Citrus Burst. I mean, come on. It was practically begging me to try it. I picked up the tube. It felt cool and smooth in my hand. I brought it up to my nose, hesitant at first. And then, whoosh, this incredible scent hit me. It wasn't just orange, it was like a whole citrus orchestra. There was a zing of grapefruit, a sweet whisper of mandarin, and a little something unexpected, almost like a hint of ginger. It was intoxicating. I stood there for a good 5 minutes, I swear, just inhaling the aroma. Completely mesmerized. People probably thought I was crazy, sniffing a tube of toothpaste like it was a bouquet of roses. But I didn't care. I was transported. It was like a mini vacation for my senses. Now, I'm a creature of habit. I've been using the same mint toothpaste since I can remember. Change scares me, especially when it comes to something as integral to my morning routine as toothpaste. But this Sunrise Citrus Burst, it was calling to me. It was whispering promises of a brighter, more vibrant morning. Could I resist? Of course not. I grabbed the tube, threw it in my basket, along with a backup tube of my trusty mint, just in case, and practically skipped to the checkout. The cashier gave me a slightly amused look, but I didn't even notice. I was too excited. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the taste. Would it be as amazing as the smell? Would it be too sweet? Too tart? Would it burn? Okay, maybe I was overthinking it. Just a tad. Finally, morning arrived. I practically bolted out of bed, eager to experience this citrusy revelation. I brushed my teeth with a reverence usually reserved for much more important things. And, oh, my goodness, it was divine. The flavor exploded in my mouth. It was like sunshine in a tube. The sweetness of the mandarin balanced perfectly with the tang of the grapefruit, and that little hint of ginger. It added a warm, almost spicy kick that was unexpectedly delightful. It was like a party in my mouth. A citrusy fiesta. I swear, I brushed my teeth for way longer than usual. I just couldn't get enough. I walked around the house grinning like a fool, my mouth feeling fresh and alive. Everything seemed brighter, more vibrant. Even the grumpy cat next door seemed slightly less grumpy. Okay, maybe I was projecting. But still, the day continued to be, infused with this subtle citrusy joy. Every time I took a sip of water, I got a little reminder of that amazing flavor. It was like a secret little happiness boost throughout the day. But then, a few days later, disaster struck. I reached for my Sunrise Citrus Burst, eager for my morning dose of sunshine, and it was gone. Empty. Finished. No. Panic surged through me. What was I going to do? Go back to my boring old mint? Never. I rushed to the drugstore, heart pounding, hoping, praying that they still had it in stock. I ran down the aisle, scanning the shelves frantically, and there it was. A whole row of Sunrise Citrus Burst, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Relief washed over me, so intense it was almost emotional. I grabbed 2 tubes this time. Just in case. You can never be too prepared, right? So, there you have it. The epic tale of how buying a new toothpaste flavor turned into a roller coaster of emotions, a sensory adventure, and a reminder that sometimes, the smallest changes can bring the biggest bursts of joy. Who knew toothpaste could be so romantic? Chuckles softly. What about you? Any epic toothpaste stories? I'd love to hear them. Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and for staying with me throughout this video. I really appreciate you spending your time here. I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and share so you can stay updated with new content every single day, all focused on helping you improve your English speaking and listening. You know, before we go, it made me wonder, do you have a trip or outing planned for the coming days? It is always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans is a fantastic way to practice expressing yourself in English and connect with others in the comments. I find it so inspiring to hear about your adventures. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing. Have a wonderful day.